Hi, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of November 8, 2021. In terms of the stock market direction, I think it's going to be an overall a down week, and specifically Monday through Wednesday are going to be down days. On Thursday, market may recover to up, especially in the afternoon, and Friday again to me looks like a down day again, especially towards the late afternoon. And more generally, starting right on the 8th through about the 19th is going to be a somewhat more difficult time period this year compared to other time periods, and that's because we will have several difficult transits. So initially, the week of the 8th, we will have Mars squaring Saturn, and Mars will actually be joined by Mercury, and both of them will square Saturn. And then the following week, the week of the 15th, Mars is actually going to be opposing Uranus. And basically all of those aspects typically coincide with a variety of just either increase in volatility of the stock market, some concerns about bank stability, and variety of difficult events, maybe earthquakes or accidents, or just kind of protests or intensification of various kind of standoff kind of situations or stalemates if there are ongoing situations that require agreement or reaching a peaceful sort of conclusion to maybe a contract or a deal. Those things may not go as well this week and the following week, where there might be just unexpected surprises, unexpected delays, or just parties may not be seeing eye to eye and may take more of a confrontational sort of approach rather than, again, reaching peacefully an agreement. Specifically, the 8th through the 10th, so Monday through Wednesday this week, look quite tense. Like I mentioned, Mars is going to be in Scorpio with Mercury, and it's going to square Saturn in Saturn in Aquarius, and so that basically indicates particularly difficulties related to anything to do with Mercury or air signs, and that would indicate communication, transportation, and specifically by air or something that's moving fast like a train or airplane, car, something that is either again flying up high. At the same time, of course, Scorpio rules things like that are underground. So I think if there's, say, an accident or there are problems with a company, like a transportation company, for example, it may have to do with either like an airplane or something that's flying sort of high up in the sky, or it could be something that's like an underground tunnel or something that maybe is secret, or something that was not previously known is getting exposed either through whistleblowing or through spying, hacking kind of situation, and or a company in one of those areas. So it could be, again, something related to, say, airplanes, car manufacturing, transportation, communication in general, social media. Those companies may experience either some difficulties related to some, again, delays, lack of kind of agreement or delayed agreements, or some increased regulations on them, or some problems basically where there is not enough progress being made, and there is some accusation of some sort where, again, some angry disputes against, maybe some policies or against some regulations. So basically, even potentially losses due to, for example, an accident or being unprepared for something. At the same time, with Scorpio being involved there, the problems may stem from, for example, an attack of some sort, like a spying kind of hacking attack where there's a financial loss through perhaps not being able to deal with some debt issues or taxes or insurance, or either not getting a payout or having to basically pay too much for insurance or obviously taxes, or not getting enough earnings, again, because of some larger problems where some money was mismanaged or hidden, or there was financial fraud. And again, the areas that may particularly be affected, I believe, will be either transportation, communication, airplanes, IT, telecoms, and any sort of high-tech, electric power, electric car manufacturers, those kind of areas. And again, the nature of problems could be related to some either financial losses due to, for example, there's an accident and an airline, experiences loss due to that, or there's a problem with delayed transportation, and again, communication transportation company is affected by it, or it could be because of, again, just mismanaged of finance, and therefore something that has previously been hidden, maybe some extra debt or some financial losses. Now this Monday through Wednesday time period may come up, and again may affect sort of the value of such companies. Let's see, and then through about the 19th in general, globally, there may be just, again, either increased probability of accidents, and again, transportation type accidents, airplane accidents, or accidents where something is moving too fast or moving chaotically and kind of loses control. And again, could be a high speed moving object like a train or a car or an airplane. And there may be basically some situation that, again, things don't go well, maybe like an old part malfunctions or something along those lines. And that basically is in effect through the 19th. With this week, the focus may be on something that's old, outlived, that doesn't function quite well because, again, it's just kind of at the end of its sort of lifespan. And next week, then day 15th, the situation may involve like high winds or some unpredictable situations that arise, like sudden power loss or sudden obstacle appearing, or, you know, just some confusion that comes so fast that there's no time to react. And next week, anything that's like flying, airplanes, seems to be potentially more affected. But this week, again, both this week and next week, there's an increased probability of accidents. And for the US, as I mentioned previously, it seems to be an important week, and again, especially 8th through the 10th, and that's because we will have Saturn conjuncting the south node of the moon in the US chart. Of course, that also opposes the north node, and typically it coincides with public situations that are either affecting large groups of people or something that's in the public awareness, perhaps through like media coverage, or something just has a widespread effect or occurs at a large gathering of people. We did have news in the US, I guess a day or two ago, I think, about I forgot what the name of the event was, but basically there was a concert, I believe it was in Texas, and there was a stampede, and unfortunately 8 people died and like hundreds, I think, got injured. So that's kind of unfortunately, that's the kind of event, I guess, one may consider not attending during really bad, difficult transits, especially if you see in your chart that it happens to affect your chart individually. Of course, not everybody is going to be affected to the same degree, but basically, again, the Saturn conjuncting south node of the moon in the US chart may indicate events that either are affecting, again, large groups of people, or occur like at a conference or a concert or some large, gathering of people, like airport or something, or stadium, I don't know. Or it may affect somebody or some event or some, say, building that is very well known, and therefore it receives wide coverage, so it could be a leader. And I previously mentioned that I looked up a few events in the past, and we had a situation where George H.W. Bush was at the banquet with Japanese Prime Minister, and he started, I guess, vomiting and fainted. So again, luckily, of course, for him, he then recovered, but it's something that just gains attention because, again, of the status of the person to which it's happening, or just because it's really covered, or because it affects multiple people. Or it could be some important leader steps down or is replaced, or there's a restructuring that involves, again, heads of important, well-known corporation, or governmental leaders, or it could be a famous person, especially a wealthy or influential person that, again, steps down, or their status changes. And again, it could be a voluntary change, but it could be something that's, again, an event where it's publicized and it's sort of in the public eye a lot. And so that will be, again, in effect for the US this whole week, and especially the 8th through the 10th of November. Let's see, on the 9th, Tuesday, I think is going to be 9th, and 10th especially might be even kind of more difficult days compared to Monday, and that's again because of this more precise square between Mars and Mercury together to Saturn. So again, if of course you have any trips planned by car or some other means of transportation, I would recommend being extra careful. And maybe if you don't have to travel, to maybe not travel. And basically weather-wise, again, there might be travel disruptions due to perhaps high winds, earthquakes, fires, various accidents, or even transportation delays. And there may be just people kind of feeling a little bit more on edge, more angry or argumentative. So even if you're just, minding your own business and, driving carefully, etc., there may just maybe a higher proportion of people whose natal charts are affected by these kind of transits and who may not necessarily respond well to more disruptive energies. And so if there's, say, a need to negotiate something on Tuesday, especially on Wednesday, with someone, and if things start getting argumentative, it's best to just wait it out until, say Thursday, and just kind of let that go for now, because the deals may apart or result in an upset, even if something is reached on that day, or there's like a new project that begins on, say, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week. It may not necessarily have a good positive energy, and things may kind of have a tendency to kind of get into trouble or become difficult more than usual. So maybe not the best time to begin something of importance. So with that, on the Thursday actually looks slightly better in that sense. So on Thursday, I think market may go up, or in general, there may be a sense of kind of a little bit more of a peaceful day, relatively so to speak. And so again, market up on Thursday, and then Friday, I think market may yet again turn down, but more likely towards the end of the day, so perhaps late afternoon on Friday. And the news on Friday may focus on various Neptunian domains, so oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, drugs, religion, diseases, healthcare, beverages, of course, Navy, floods, anything to do with water, water contamination, or making sure that water is clean, the music, really. Any of those Neptunian domains may be highly featured. And actually on Friday, if there is transportation or delivery or shipment, something that's liquid or done through like waterways or some marine transportation, that actually may go better than usual on Friday. And so for those areas, things actually may be positive. So maybe if there's a pharmaceutical company, or I don't know, some sort of a like Walgreens, CVS type companies, or company that produces chemicals. So the news on Friday for those companies may actually be positive, where deals are reached, opportunities are there, things are kind of progressing, the delivery of some important chemical finally arrives, or there's an good weather, and so if the ships need to go through, some river or I don't know, pond or whatever, not pond, but like basically if something needs to be delivered by water, or something that's liquid in nature, or gas for that matter, at that time things may go well and things can get delivered at the very minimum on time, or like I said, an agreement may be reached where all parties are on the same page as far as like when something should be delivered, like oil or gas, how it will be done, and everyone sort of will reach an agreement and things will proceed faster, therefore, than usual. At the same time, right around that time, so the 12th afternoon, especially through the 19th, we will have this beginning of this Mars opposing Uranus transit. And at that time, we will start feeling what will be the theme of the following week, which is volatility or instability, or concerns about stability of financial institutions, banks, currency values, including cryptocurrencies, any sort of digital money transactions or money transfers. And that will peak next week, when Mars will be opposing Uranus more precisely, and that again will involve, of course, the Scorpio and Taurus, which themselves are related to things like earnings, finance, banks, currencies, taxes, insurance, and loans, debt, mortgages, rates, things of that nature. And so with Mars and Uranus, and this kind of opposition aspect would happen like about every 2.5 years or so. So it's not a very frequent occurrence, but definitely in these kind of signs that are fixed signs that like for things to be stable. Of course, one wants their income or earnings or bank savings, etc., to be stable. And unfortunately, Uranus is nothing but stable, and Mars will kind of cause aggravation. And so there may be either concerns about instability of some financial institutions, concerns about debt, concerns about some insolvency, concerns about even spying or hacking situations, or concerns about, again, financial fraud, somebody not paying taxes, or increase in taxes, or financial losses through improper investments, or just unfortunate investments. So basically, a variety of kind of financial domain situations that may be, the nature of which may be volatility, concerns about stability, value fluctuating up and down, again, of currencies, forex and cryptocurrencies all can be affected quite a bit. And again, there may be sudden surprising but unnerving, more likely unpleasant type surprises coming up, and again, starting as early as Friday, especially afternoon, and into next week, where something may abruptly be canceled, or a new project may abruptly begin kind of ahead of schedule, or some other kind of, maybe a leader is introduced at a different capacity, somebody who's a lot more aggressive, pushes things, but perhaps taking on too much risk rather. And so they may be upset about whether or not things are kind of going in the right direction, and whether or not there is stable, predictable outcome. And so that may not occur again for next week. So looking into kind of the rest of this year, which is December of 2021, some of the highlights are that around the 7th and 8th of December, yet again, we may see increased market volatility, and it may actually be resulting in the market going down on 7 and 8, then going back up on the 9th, and yet again to down on the 10th. And so at the very minimum, I expect during again 7, 8, and even into 10th of December, that there may be increased market volatility, increased like trading volume, as well as just kind of a little bit more of a sense of sort of irritation in the air, so to speak, increased maybe news about like gas leaks or fires or some explosions, again, some like gas leaks and it explodes, just something that again just happens, that it's disruptive, and maybe problems for oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, Navy, involving again either some difficult situations, accidents, or maybe like an oil spill causing, say, oil pollution, or concerns about oil pipelines. And that's all again sort of December 7th through 8th, and potentially into the 10th of December. And after that, plus minus a few days, but right around the 15th, and I would say even of December, and really into the end of December, we will have again somewhat difficult time, where on the one hand we will experience kind of a Saturn and Uranus, which are sort of on-off in a square transit this whole year, going to be forming yet again a precise square right on the 25th, so right around, I guess, Christmas time. But on the 15th, the reason it's significant is that it's also going to be time when Mars is going to be joining south node of the moon, and yet again, this is we have this when nodes of the moon are aspected by these kind of not important, but rather slower moving planets, or Mars, which indicates like accidents and military sort of skirmishes, or just explosions, fires, or just some disruption of the unpleasant kind. And so yet again on the 15th, I think there may be, again, plus minus a few days, there might be another situation that may involve like, again, an accident, or like building collapsing, or maybe it's due to an earthquake, or due to just some disruption. Like I said, it could be a gas leak or something like that, but something where again causes a massive sort of disruption that is again find its way in the news, or affects multiple large group of people, or occurs somewhere where there is a large group of people, like an again airplane accident, a strong earthquake. And so at the same time, again, the 15th of December is significant because there's also going to be There will be also some transits to the chart of the US that are indicative of some fluctuations of the currency value, and potentially that can lead to or be related to the increase in the value of gold and silver. So again, right around the 15th, we may see the silver and gold, or the gold and potentially also silver spike, or maybe even reach sort of the top for the year, or at least one of the intermediate tops. And at the same time, there may be news out of the US about either financial policies or rates, or something to do with monetary policy and US dollar value, which again, may potentially, there may be concerns about it. And so there may also be out of the US some focus on oil, gas prices, value, and pharmaceuticals, and again, Neptunian domains all at the same time. So there may be just a lot going on, and that may potentially lead investors at that time to kind of turn to a little bit more what is maybe perceived by them as more, I guess, stable investment opportunities. So let's see. So like I said, through second half of December, unfortunately, with Saturn and Uranus squaring each other, may be somewhat prone again to various disasters, and could be again a large earthquake, like an avalanche, or a rock slide, or something that again is an airplane accident, or basically something that involves like a large tall building, mountain, or a large piece of equipment, and something that is somewhere at the top comes crashing down. And that's similar during previous times when Uranus and Saturn kind of became a little bit more precise. Their square became more precise. We did have earlier in the year, we had this situation in India where there was, I guess, a rock slide, or rock and ice sort of pieces broke off, and they hit the dam, and that, I guess, caused obviously a lot of damage. And then also there was, of course, in the US and in Miami, there was a condo building that collapsed. So that's sort of the energy that is coming up, right, I'd say between 15th, 25th of December, somewhere around those dates. Let's see. And then after that, I will be posting indeed predictions for 2022. I have done some previews previously, but sort of something that's ongoing and that is already in place sort of this year and then will continue into next year or two, will be several important transits that actually are specific for the US, and the US basically is undergoing multiple difficult transits at the time. So one is the Neptune transiting Neptune, opposing its Neptune and squaring US Mars, and that relates to some troubles or difficulties or confusion related to areas, again, that are related to Neptune and Mars, which will be on the one hand oil, gas, pharmaceutical industries, Navy, and at the same time Mars, of course, has to do also with Navy, but also just military in general or sports. And so those areas may undergo some difficulties where there might be, again, confusing circumstances, some deception, or potentially again, spying, hacking situations, or there may be some just accidents that involve like chemicals or drugs, bioweapons, submarines, some unseen threats, again, hacking, spying, or like literally something that's underwater, or maybe like a ship runs into a pipeline that has oil or gas in it. And so just those things that are kind of combined together, that's your energy of Neptune and Mars combined, where you have something that's liquid, invisible, or submerged. And Mars, of course, is fire, energy, and military and weapons, and those things, unfortunately, at this time. And that's about through, certainly the intense energy will be through the end of February of 2022, and kind of a general energy of this disruption actually will last through even February of 2024. So that basically may lead to either some difficult situations related to either Navy or oil sort of companies experiencing some either confusion or accidents, or things just kind of not going well because, again, of some miscommunication or an accident or something just kind of being disrupted. But it's very hard because of Neptunian energy being very elusive. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what is the reason for the problem and what's the solution. But it's more of that energy of just general disruption, but also confusion as to what should be done and should I stay or should I go, like in that song. And Mars is action, but Mars can't really take a decisive action with all these Neptunian transits. So basically it's squaring Neptune in the US chart and is now also going to be squared by the transiting Neptune. So it will be hard for the US as a country to kind of sort of make the decisive move as far as like what should be, I guess, the future of the oil industry, for example, or how to address issues of maybe gas prices or something like that, or even pharmaceuticals or Navy, etc. So all those things may not kind of settle down, and the precise kind of a direction may not be, I guess, settled until this initial square and opposition from Neptune will pass, which will be sometime spring of next year. But then after that, Neptune will continue influencing US chart by going through its fourth house, which has to do with things like border security, homeland security, farms, homeland, real estate, just land, like farmlands, but also assets of the banks. So savings that banks are basically putting into various assets to kind of keep them secure. And of course, also groceries, food, again, farming, agriculture, things like that. And with Neptune there, we may expect increased news. Again, that's through like February of 2024. Increased news of a variety of things that are related to Neptune, which could be like floods, contamination of soil, confusion, real estate underwater, whether it has to do with mortgages or literally because of floods. It may also affect by, say, maybe pollution with some chemicals or oil pollution, but some sort of pollution, vermin, contamination, and things may affect, basically, there may be problems with agriculture because of that, or concerns about food, or just some confusion related to those areas where, again, things just may not be done on purpose, but some confusion leads to some unfortunate kind of events, and therefore, again, there may be concerns about bank stability, again, due to some investments in real estate that then turn out to be, due to that initial confusion, turn out to be really not as good as they are, or not what they seem to be. And I guess this already we can see in this news about Zillow, that they have to lay off like a quarter of their staff, and they're changing how they're investing in real estate or something like that. But basically, this is, I think, just the beginning, unfortunately, or this Neptunian kind of transit and affecting the fourth, the cusp of the fourth house of the US chart is going to be in effect and felt fairly strongly throughout, say, the end of February of 2024. And of course, Neptune also has to do with water, so there may be even concerns about water contamination, delivery of clean water due to whatever, could be just environmental situation, but basically any water contamination or liquids, contamination of either water or ensuring that water is purified and clean water is available. Those might, again, be, or even beverages of any sort are clean, available, etc. That may be another area, to look for, where there may be increased news and increased projects that are happening in those areas. And in addition to all this, for the US, we will also, of course, or we already are, I guess, it started this year and will proceed into next year or two, is the Pluto, so-called Pluto return. And so that's Pluto going back to its own position in the US chart. At the same time, is actually opposing US Mercury as well. And that also will be with us through about early 2024, but particularly it will be felt strong end of this year, 2022, and 2023. And there are multiple dates, and you can check it out on telstunka.com. I have some dates on my long-term predictions, and of course, as I will be making additional videos, I will have maybe a different video just specifically go over that. But basically, it will be situations that may involve, again, various Plutonian issues, so like taxes, rates, debt, loans, but also nuclear power, and power in general, as in power of power structure or power plants, where to get energy from or how to use the energy. And those areas, just generally speaking, are related to Pluto, or underground, like mining, for example, or excavation of something that maybe previously was buried, maybe some person was buried somewhere and now they're reburying it, or maybe there's a mine that's been abandoned and perhaps there is some, treasure is found there, and now it's again being sort of reopened and the treasure is being dug up or something like that. So that's just general Pluto influence for you, but specifically in the US, it happens to be in the second house rather, of finance. So, and indeed previous transits, not of course this is the first Pluto return, but previous transits of slow-moving planets to the Pluto in US chart basically were indicative of a variety of main acts that were affecting finance, affecting Federal Reserve, and so basically there may be increased focus on maybe some changes on how things are regulated, maybe even some sort of banking reform, or again changes of basically who's in power, how the power is distributed, how the power is being passed on, so to speak, and it specifically may involve either financial institutions or earnings of really any institutions, just earnings of the country as a whole. And of course the opposite house is also involved, and again not only because Mercury is there and Pluto will be opposing it, but also just generally because if one house is affected, the opposite house is usually affected too. So we will be focusing on some sort of reforms, restructuring that involves currency, including cryptocurrencies, just values in general, like what is valuable, what it's not, maybe what was valuable before is no longer valuable, and vice versa. And similarly, taxes, insurance, investments, rates, mortgages, all of those areas may undergo really big transformation, be it because, again, something just will have to kind of sort of quote-unquote die. That's what Pluto rules. But then again, there's a rebirth to replace it with something more productive, more efficient, better functioning, better structure, maybe more efficient sort of power structure where maybe more energy can be generated, or a more efficient way of governing something. And again, because of the emphasis on the second and eighth house, it may specifically have to do with finance, debt, loan, taxes, and things like that. And Mercury being unfortunately negatively aspected by Pluto, Mercury rules things like education, transportation, and communication primarily. So those areas, those industries may also undergo some sort of restructuring, or may see new either acts that are governing them. So in the past, for example, when there was this also aspect either from Pluto or from Neptune to the position of Mercury in the US chart, we did have some communication and telecommunication reform. So maybe how communication companies are not allowed, but should function, who oversees them, how things are governed, under what condition, who can, I guess, send what communication when. Same thing for transportation. So more, I guess, we can expect more controls or news about basically things, how they were functioning in the past, like how people would travel somewhere, or what was the process of, communicating, or what was the process of maybe social media company delivering information. Those things may be definitely scrutinized, and there may be a major overhaul, again, some reform that changes the logistics, changes the structure, and or the companies themselves may undergo really major transformation. Again, with Pluto, things are usually not very subtle, rather it's, again, death and rebirth. So something is completely discarded, and sometimes, they throw sort of baby with the bathwater, but then something not completely, but rather something radically new is implemented, and that's kind of begins a new, fairly long-term, like multi-decade, long-term cycle with this new kind of a new vision for, again, education, transportation, and communication in particular. And again, because of this 8th and 2nd house influence, it may involve how maybe companies pay taxes, or maybe something to do with their earnings that affects their earnings, or how they distribute their earnings, how they're able to earn money. So those areas may all be kind of undergoing, or even maybe the currencies that they use, etc. So all of that may definitely be sort of subject to some major changes, and that's again between sometime this year, even starting now, and kind of cranking up into 2022, and throughout, say, end of February of 2024 is this whole big long-term, I guess, background period, background influence for the US, and that I'm sure will be having some effect on other parts of the world as well. But that's just something that I guess is worth to keep in mind, and I don't necessarily need to repeat it every time, but I will try to make a separate video on the Pluto return, just to kind of give us some more examples of what we may have experienced in the past, where Pluto's position was aspected by other slow-moving planets. So until then, stay safe. I hope you have a great week despite these difficult transits, and have a fantastic week, and I'll get you guys later. Bye.